My daughter drained every last cent from our bank accounts and ran off with a criminal, leaving me with nothing after 42 years of grueling work. I was consumed with fury, but my 14-year-old grandson just gave a quiet smile. "Grandpa, don't worry. I've taken care of it all." Days later, she called, her voice a storm of rage and tears. "You won't believe what my brilliant grandson did." Before we dive deeper, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments what time it is, where you are now. I slid my card into the ATM, a ritual performed thousands of times. The screen flickered on, asking for my PIN. 4 digits, etched in my mind for 22 years, flowed effortlessly from my fingers. Insufficient funds. My hand froze on the keypad. Those 2 words glared back, impossible and cold. I pulled the card out, inspecting the magnetic strip for scratches. The machine had to be faulty. It just had to be. I inserted it again. Same PIN, same withdrawal amount, same crushing response. This can't be right. The words slipped out, raw and unguarded. Behind me, an elderly woman shifted, her keys jingling against her purse with impatience. I checked my wallet, counting the 20s from last week's grocery run. $60 left. The savings account. That was my lifeline. I switched cards. Same machine, same PIN. My fingers trembled as I punched in the numbers. Insufficient funds. Sweat prickled my forehead despite the crisp April breeze in Chicago. Just last week, I'd checked the balance. $18,475. My entire nest egg, scraped together from 42 years at the Chrysler plant. Every overtime shift, every skipped lunch, every dollar hoarded for retirement. The woman cleared her throat again. "Sorry," I mumbled, gathering my cards. The ATM spit out a receipt. Account balance $0.00. Last transaction at 8:30 a.m. today. My legs felt unsteady as I walked toward the bank's entrance. The glass doors reflected an old man in faded jeans and a flannel shirt, looking small and bewildered. Inside, the familiar scent of carpet cleaner and brewed coffee enveloped me. Laura Thompson stood behind the teller window, the same woman who'd handled my deposits for 16 years. "Afternoon, Mr. Bennett," she said with her warm smile. "How can I help you today?" "Laura, something's wrong with my accounts. I placed both cards on the counter. The ATM says I have no money, but that's impossible." Her fingers danced across the keyboard. Her smile faded. "Let me pull up your account history." More typing, a pause. "Mr. Bennett, there was a withdrawal this morning at 8:30 a.m. for the full balance of $18,475. The room tilted. "That's not possible. I was asleep at home at 8:30. The transaction was made by Sarah Mitchell. She's listed as a joint account holder." Laura's voice softened. "She withdrew everything, sir. Checking and savings. Sarah." My daughter's name hit like a physical blow. But she wouldn't. There must be a mistake. Laura turned her monitor toward me. There it was, stark in black and white. Sarah Mitchell. Full withdrawal. Every penny I owned. Gone. "I'm so sorry. Mr. Bennett, the transaction appears legitimate. She had proper authorization." I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Joint account holder. I'd added her name 5 years ago during her divorce, just in case something happened to me, just in case she needed help with young Noah. My hands shook as I collected the cards. "Thank you. Laura, Mr. Bennett. Are you all right?" Do you need me to call someone? I shook my head and stumbled toward the exit on unsteady legs. Outside, the afternoon sun in Chicago's suburbs felt too bright. My old Dodge pickup sat in the parking lot, unchanged. But the world had shifted beneath me. Everything had changed in that moment at the ATM. I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket and scrolled to Sarah's number. My thumb hovered over the call button. There had to be an explanation. An emergency with Noah. A mistake. My daughter wouldn't steal from me. Would she? The phone rang 7 times before hitting voicemail, her voice cheerful and distant. "Hi, you've reached Sarah. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you." I hung up and tried again. 7 rings. Voicemail. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I sat in the lot. Cars passed on Lincoln Avenue. Normal people living normal lives while mine crumbled. I dialed a 3rd time. Ring, ring, ring. Pick up. "Sarah, please." 4th attempt. 5th. On the 6th try. She answered. "Dad, I know why you're calling." Her voice was cold, prepared, devoid of surprise or concern. "Sarah, honey, what happened to the money Laura at the bank said you took everything this morning? But that can't be right." Silence stretched, filled with the hum of highway noise in the background. It's exactly right. Each word landed like a stone. I took it all. Ethan and I are starting fresh somewhere new. The phone felt slick in my sweating palm. But sweetheart, that's everything I have. My whole retirement. How am I supposed to live? You'll figure it out. You always do. Sarah, please. If you're in trouble, we can talk. Come home. Bring Noah. We'll work it out together. A harsh laugh crackled through the speaker. There's nothing to work out. Dad, I deserve this money more than you do. I've been taking care of everyone else my whole life. Now it's my turn. What about Noah, his school, his friends? He can't just disappear. Noah's with me. He'll adjust. Kids are resilient. My grandson, sweet, brilliant Noah, with his math competitions and science projects, torn from everything he knew. Sarah, you can't do this. That boy needs stability. He needs his home, his school. What he needs is a mother who's happy for once. Someone not stuck in this dead-end town, working dead-end jobs, scraping by while others live real lives. I gave you everything I could. When you divorced James, who paid for the lawyer when you couldn't make rent? Who covered it? When Noah needed school supplies, new clothes, birthday gifts, who provided them? And I'm grateful. This is me paying you back by taking what I need for a better life. Her logic twisted painfully. I pressed my hand against my temple, trying to understand. Sweetheart, please come home. We can talk this through. If you need money for something specific, we can arrange it. There's nothing to arrange. Ethan and I are 5 states away already. Don't try to find us. The line went dead. I called back instantly. Straight to voicemail. Again, same result. The 3rd attempt gave a message. The number you have dialed is not in service. She'd blocked me. I sat in the truck, staring at the phone screen. My daughter had stolen my life savings and vanished with my grandson. No warning. No discussion. No chance to say goodbye to the boy I'd helped raise for 14 years. The parking lot seemed to spin. I gripped the door handle, fighting nausea. 42 years of careful saving, gone in a single morning transaction. The woman I'd held as a baby, taught to ride a bike, walked down the aisle at her wedding, had destroyed me without hesitation. I turned the key in the ignition with trembling fingers. The Dodge's engine roared to life, reliable as ever. At least something still worked. Pulling onto Lincoln Avenue, I drove slowly past the hardware store, the diner, the small shops that had anchored my life for decades. Everything looked the same, but I felt like a stranger in my own town. The man who'd parked at the bank an hour ago no longer existed. I needed time to think before going home. Time to process the betrayal. Time to figure out how to survive with $60 to my name. I drove through Chicago's residential streets, letting muscle memory guide me past familiar landmarks. The elementary school where I'd picked up Sarah every day for 6 years. Mrs. Peterson's classroom, 3rd grade, where my little girl won the spelling bee. I'd been so proud, sitting in those tiny chairs at the award ceremony. The ice cream shop on Maple Street, where we celebrated her 9th birthday. Just the two of us. Her mother already pulling away by then. Sarah ordered a sundae bigger than her head and declared it the best birthday ever. Daddy! My throat tightened as I turned into Riverside Park, the place where life was once simple, where being a good father meant pushing swings and catching fireflies, not navigating joint accounts and betrayal. I parked near the pond and walked to our old bench, facing the duck families that gathered each spring. Sarah used to bring stale bread in a paper bag, tearing it into perfect pieces, not too big. Daddy, the little ducks can't eat big chunks. She'd been 3 or 4, standing on tiptoes to reach over the fence. Her small hand slipped into mine with complete trust. I love you best of anyone, Daddy. Those words echoed across 30 years as I sat alone on the worn wooden bench. The ducks paddled near the shore, but no little girl stood beside me now. No patient father explaining which ducks were males and which were females. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike in this park. She'd been 7, determined but frightened, insisting I hold the seat while she pedaled. Around the path we went. Her training wheels removed that morning against her mother's wishes. Don't let go, Daddy. Promise you won't let go. But I had let go eventually. Watched her wobble, find balance, and ride away with pure joy on her face. She circled back, breathless with excitement. Did you see me? Daddy, did you see me ride all by myself? When had that joyful girl become the cold voice on the phone? When had I loved you best of anyone? Daddy turned into I took it all. High school graduation came back in fragments. Sarah in her navy cap and gown, giving the valedictorian speech to a packed gymnasium. I sat in the front row, beaming as she spoke of dreams, possibilities, and a bright future ahead. My father taught me that hard work and dedication can overcome any obstacle. She'd said that night. The audience turned to smile at me. The single dad who'd raised such an accomplished daughter. What obstacles was she overcoming now by stealing my retirement? Her wedding day surfaced next. Sharp and unbidden. The father-daughter dance at the VFW hall. Her white dress spinning as I guided her across the small floor. James had been a good man then. Before the drinking started. Before the arguments Noah overheard through thin apartment walls. Thanks for always being there. Dad, she'd whispered that night. I don't know what I'd have done without you. I'd held her close and promised I'd always be there. Through marriage troubles, money problems, and raising a grandson who needed stability. I was there until this morning, when always being there meant having my loyalty rewarded with complete financial ruin. The spring breeze carried the scent of new grass and possibility. But all I felt was the weight of memory crashing against the harsh reality. Every sacrifice I'd made, every extra shift worked. every dollar saved, all justified by love, for a daughter who'd just proven that love meant nothing to her. Where did that little girl go? The one who clutched my hand and called me the best daddy in the world. When did she learn to lie so effortlessly, to plan betrayal while looking me in the eye, asking for rent money? I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and stood from the bench. The ducks continued their endless paddling, unbothered by human heartbreak. Some things remained constant. At least something still made sense. Walking back to the truck, I caught my reflection in the side mirror. Same flannel shirt, same worn face, but something fundamental had shifted. The man staring back was learning that love could be weaponized by those who mattered most. I drove slowly toward home, dreading what awaited. Noah's backpack would still hang by the front door from yesterday. His chess set spread across the kitchen table where we'd been working through a tricky endgame, all the evidence of a life I'd thought secure and meaningful. My key hesitated at the front door lock. How do you enter your own home when everything you believed about your family has been shattered? How do you face a grandson who doesn't yet know his mother has abandoned him? The key turned, and I stepped into what remained of my normal life. Inside, the house felt both familiar and foreign. I hung my jacket on the wooden peg by the door, the same peg I'd used for 25 years. The living room stretched before me, filled with furniture that had witnessed decades of family moments, now hollow with new meaning. Family photos lined the mantelpiece like evidence in a trial I was only beginning to understand. I walked toward them slowly, drawn by faces smiling from happier times. The largest frame held Sarah's wedding photo from 15 years ago, her radiant in white lace. Me in my only good suit, both of us believing in futures that would never happen. I lifted the frame with trembling hands. James Mitchell had seemed like such a catch back then. College educated, steady job at the insurance firm, polite and respectful during our first meeting. I'd walked my daughter down the aisle at St. Michael's Church, proud to give her to a man who promised to love and protect her. 4 years. That's how long their marriage lasted before cracks appeared. I settled into my worn leather armchair, perfectly positioned for watching TV and keeping an eye on the front door. The wedding photo felt heavy in my hands as memories flooded back with painful clarity. The first sign was subtle, James's comments about Sarah's cooking during Sunday dinners. "Honey, the chicken's a bit dry. Maybe next time." Always delivered with a smile, always followed by laughter. But I'd seen my daughter's face tighten with each gentle criticism. Then came the financial control. Sarah had to ask permission for every purchase, justify every grocery receipt, explain every dollar spent. I watched my confident, valedictorian daughter shrink into someone who apologized for buying Noah new shoes when his old ones wore through. But the morning that changed everything was burned into my memory. December 10th, 2022, a Monday. I'd been reading the newspaper over coffee when the doorbell rang at 7:15 a.m. Sarah stood on my porch in yesterday's clothes, her left eye swollen and purple. 4-year-old Noah clung to her leg with the terrified silence children adopt when their world turns dangerous. "Dad." James hit me again. "Please, can Noah and I stay here again?" The word again sliced through me like a blade. How many times had there been an again I didn't know about? "Of course, sweetheart. You're always welcome home." I said it without hesitation, without questions, without conditions. Just opened my arms, my home, and my heart to shelter them from James's storm. That's what I did. Always. Every time Sarah needed rescuing, I rescued her. Every time she needed money, I provided it. Every time she made a mistake, I fixed it. Every time she asked for help, I said yes. When James cleaned out their joint checking account before she could file for divorce, I hired the lawyer. When she couldn't make the first month's rent on her apartment, I covered it. When Noah needed school clothes, sports equipment, birthday parties, I supplied everything without complaint. I loved being needed. Loved being the reliable father who could solve any problem, meet any crisis, provide any missing piece. Being Sarah's safe harbor gave my retirement purpose and meaning. But somewhere in that unconditional giving, I'd taught her that taking from me had no consequences, that my resources were hers by right, not gift, that my love meant she never had to be accountable for her choices. I stared at the wedding photo, studying James's confident smile. He'd been a taker too, in his own way. His taking came with violence and threats, while mine came with hugs and reassurance. But both of us had taught Sarah she didn't need to answer for her actions. The sound of video game music drifted from upstairs. Noah in his room, unaware his mother had stolen his grandfather's entire savings and disappeared. Unaware the foundation of his secure world had been shattered. I set the wedding photo back on the mantel and picked up the next frame. Christmas morning, 2023. Sarah, Noah, and me around the tree, surrounded by gifts I'd bought and paid for, all of us smiling, all of us happy. None of us knowing that in 5 months, everything would fall apart. When had I loved you, Dad? Become I deserve this money more than you. When had my daughter learned that love was something to exploit, not cherish? The answer sat heavy in my chest like a stone. I'd taught her. Every rescue, every bailout, every unconditional yes had been a lesson in entitlement. Every time I smoothed over her mistakes, I prevented her from learning that actions have consequences. I'd enabled her, created the monster that had just destroyed me. Footsteps moved across the floor upstairs, Noah getting up from his gaming chair. In a few minutes, he'd come down for dinner, expecting our usual Monday evening routine, maintained for 5 years, homework at the kitchen table while I cooked, chess games after dinner, TV before bed. How do you tell a 14-year-old his mother has abandoned him? That the woman meant to protect him chose a criminal over her son's stability. I stood from the chair, knowing I couldn't avoid this conversation any longer. Noah deserved the truth, even if it would shatter his world as completely as mine had been. The house felt smaller suddenly, walls pressing in. Every familiar object mocked me with reminders of the life I'd thought was real. The life where being a good father meant everything would work out fine. I walked toward the kitchen, needing movement, needing action to counter the weight of understanding pressing on my shoulders. The kitchen welcomed me with familiar warmth, worn wooden counters that held decades of family meals, the old gas stove, still needing a match to light, the coffee maker that hummed to life every morning at 6 sharp. I craved the comfort of routine, the anchor of simple tasks that made sense when nothing else did. I pulled coffee beans from the freezer and measured them into the grinder. The sharp whir filled the silence, drowning out the video game sounds from upstairs for 30 blessed seconds. Water from the tap, filter in place. Grounds measured with the precision of 22 years of morning ritual. The kitchen table drew my attention as the coffee brewed. 4 chairs around scarred oak, each held memories. Noah's spot by the window for homework. My place at the head, back to the stove. Sarah's chair across from me, where she'd sat 5 months ago introducing the man who'd destroy our family. Dad, I want you to meet Ethan. He's really special to me. January 20th, a cold Sunday evening. I'd been cooking pot roast, the house filled with the smell of comfort food, when Sarah brought her new boyfriend home for the first time. Ethan walked into my kitchen wearing a black leather jacket despite the winter chill. Motorcycle boots left scuff marks on my clean floor. His smile never reached his eyes. Tattoos snaked up his neck in dark patterns that screamed prison time and bad decisions. "Nice place you've got here, Mr. Bennett." His voice carried a slickness that set me on edge. "Great security system, quiet neighborhood, real cozy setup you three have going." I'd shaken his offered hand, feeling calluses from hard labor, noting how his eyes cataloged my home. The expensive TV in the living room, the family photos showing 3 generations of stability, the signs of financial security I'd never thought to hide. Sarah beamed with pride, hanging onto his arm like a teenager with her first crush. "Ethan's had some rough breaks, Dad, but he's really turned his life around. Haven't you?" "Honey, absolutely. Beautiful. Past is past. I'm all about the future now." Throughout dinner, his questions were casual but pointed. How long had I worked at Chrysler? What kind of pension did auto workers get? Did I own the house outright? Was Sarah listed on any of my accounts? I answered politely while my instincts screamed warnings. Something was fundamentally wrong with this man. The possessive touch on my daughter's shoulder, the smile when discussing my finances, the way he studied our home like he was calculating its worth. But Sarah was happy. Happier than I'd seen her since before James's abuse began. She laughed at Ethan's stories, defended his rough edges, called his crude comments honesty rather than disrespect. After they left, I stood by the coffee maker, washing dishes, trying to convince myself my concerns were just overprotective fatherhood. Maybe Ethan deserved a second chance. Maybe his criminal past, which was obvious, was truly behind him. The next morning, my neighbor Tom Harrison stopped by for his usual Tuesday coffee visit. "Interesting company you had last night," Tom said, settling into the chair where Ethan had sat. Recognized that motorcycle from the department database. Tom had been a police officer for 17 years, the kind who knew every troublemaker in 3 counties. His weathered face carried the weight of too many domestic calls and robbery investigations. Ran his plates after he left. Guy named Ethan Carter, record longer than my arm. Robbery, fraud, assault charges. Real piece of work. The coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. How bad? Bad enough. 5 convenience store robberies in Illinois. Credit card scam that bilked seniors out of their savings. Beat a man unconscious in a bar fight 2 years ago. Guy's a predator. Targets vulnerable women, especially ones with resources. I set down my cup with trembling hands. What should I do? Keep that guy away from your family. Change any passwords he might have seen. Move some money to accounts Sarah doesn't know about. This isn't the kind of man who changes, no matter what he's telling your daughter. But I didn't do any of those things. I convinced myself Tom was overly suspicious, that Sarah deserved happiness after James's abuse, that interfering would push her away, like I'd done with 2 previous boyfriends. I watched, waited, hoped her judgment would improve, hoped Ethan would prove me wrong, hoped love would keep our family safe. 4 months of hoping while Ethan moved into our home, learned our routines, gained access to our information. 4 months watching him charm Sarah while my gut screamed we were being hunted. The coffee maker beeped, pulling me back to the present. I poured a cup and sat in my usual spot, staring at the empty chair where Ethan had smiled and planned our destruction. I'd had all the information I needed. A cop's warning, documented criminal history, my own instincts shouting danger, and I'd done nothing. Fear had paralyzed me. fear of losing Sarah's love, fear of being seen as controlling, like James had been, fear that standing up for my family would make me the villain. Now we'd lost everything because I was too afraid of conflict to protect what mattered most. Upstairs, Noah's game sounds paused. Footsteps crossed the floor above. The bathroom break signaling homework time was near. In 15 minutes, my grandson would come downstairs expecting dinner and normalcy. Time was running out. The conversation I'd been dreading couldn't be postponed. I rinsed my coffee cup in the sink, watching the last drops swirl down the drain. Everything was disappearing. Money, family, the illusion that being a good man was enough to keep loved ones safe. But Noah remained. My grandson, who trusted me to protect him, needed to know the truth about his mother's actions. I walked back to the living room, steeling myself for the hardest conversation of my life. The room felt different now, charged with the weight of approaching revelation. 6:45 on the wall clock. 15 minutes until Noah's usual homework time. 30 minutes until our normal dinner routine, a routine that would never be normal again. I paced between the couch and the coffee table, rehearsing words that refused to form. How do you explain betrayal to a child who believes in family goodness? How do you shatter innocence without destroying hope, son? Your mother took our money and ran away. Too harsh. Too sudden. Noah, we need to talk about some changes. Too vague. Too frightening in its uncertainty. Your mother has made choices that affect our family. Still not right. Nothing felt right. Upstairs, the video game music continued its electronic melody. Some superhero adventure where good always triumphed over evil. Where justice prevailed and heroes saved the day. The irony cut deep. My grandson was playing at being a hero while the real villains had already escaped with their spoils. I settled onto the couch, then stood, sat in my armchair, then returned to the couch. The house felt too small for the conversation we needed, yet too large for the emptiness it would create. Through the ceiling, I heard Noah's routine unfolding with predictable precision. The squeak of his desk chair as he pushed back from the computer, footsteps to the bathroom, the flush of the toilet, running water at the sink, the familiar sounds of a 14-year-old transitioning from play to work. My mind raced through approaches. Should I ease in with gentle questions about his mother? Start with reassurances about his security lead, with practical implications before the emotional betrayal. The grandfather clock ticked steadily, marking time that felt both too fast and too slow. Each minute brought us closer to the moment when Noah's world would change forever. Each second gave me more time to doubt every word I'd planned. At 6:50, his gaming chair creaked again, the pause of a saved game. Soon, he'd shut down the computer and gather his school books. The Monday routine we'd maintained for 5 years was about to begin for the last time. I moved to the bottom of the staircase, hand resting on the worn wooden banister. My grandfather built these stairs in 1954 when families endured hardship together, when children trusted parents to protect them, not abandon them. Grandpa, I'll be down in 5 minutes. Noah's voice carried the casual warmth of a child who believed his world was secure. A child with no reason to doubt Monday evening would unfold like every other Monday for the past 5 years. Take your time, son. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The sounds of homework preparation began upstairs, backpack zippers, textbook pages turning, papers being organized. Noah was a diligent student, methodical and responsible in ways that made me proud. He'd inherited his mother's intelligence but seemed to avoid her impulsiveness. At least, I hoped he had. Standing at the base of the stairs, I realized how much I'd taken for granted. The simple joy of a grandson doing homework while dinner cooked. The comfortable routine of helping with algebra and hearing stories about school friends. The assumption tomorrow would bring another normal evening in a life built on stability and trust. All of it was about to change. The wall clock showed 6:55. Time was a river flowing toward a waterfall, carrying us toward a moment that couldn't be avoided. In my pocket, my phone remained silent. No missed calls from Sarah, no texts explaining herself, no last-minute change of heart. She was gone, truly gone, and Noah needed to know. I cleared my throat and called up the stairs, my voice heavier than usual. Noah, can you come down here for a minute? We need to talk. A pause in the paper shuffling. Sure. Grandpa, just let me save my homework file. The familiar sounds of a computer shutting down properly. Noah was careful with technology, never losing work to careless mistakes. Another trait that set him apart from his mother, who'd always been reckless with important things. Footsteps crossed the floor above, moving toward the top of the stairs. In 30 seconds, maybe less, my grandson would appear with his usual smile and casual question about dinner plans, and I would have to find words to tell him his mother had chosen a criminal over her own son's welfare. That the woman supposed to love him most had abandoned him for money and a fresh start with a man who saw children as obstacles. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. I saw the toe of his sneaker on the first step, then another. My heart pounded against my ribs as I prepared to destroy the innocence of the boy I'd helped raise for 14 years. Here we go. Time for the truth. Noah appeared at the bottom of the stairs with his easy stride. But something in his expression stopped my rehearsed words. No confusion. No casual curiosity about why his grandfather looked so serious. Just calm. Knowing eyes holding far too much understanding for a 14-year-old. He settled beside me on the couch without being asked. Close enough for comfort, but not crowding. A gesture of someone preparing for a difficult conversation. Not walking in blindly. I reached for his hand, ready to deliver the gentle blow I'd practiced. Son, I need to tell you something important about your mother. Grandpa, I already know. His voice carried no surprise, no shock, just quiet resignation mixed with a protective determination. She took all the money and left with Ethan. Right. The words hit like cold water. My mouth opened, then closed. When did you find out? I heard them planning it Sunday night. Noah shifted to face me directly, his young face serious beyond his years. I was getting a glass of water around midnight when I heard voices in Mom's room. The door was cracked, and they were talking about bank accounts and getting away clean. My mind reeled back. 36 hours ago, Sunday night, while I slept peacefully, trusting my family was safe under my roof. My daughter was plotting my ruin down the hall. You've known since Sunday, the timeline made my head spin. But you went to school yesterday like nothing was wrong. You did homework, ate dinner with me. I couldn't tell you then. Noah's voice gained strength, the tone of someone who'd thought through their reasoning carefully. I needed time to figure out how to fix it first. And I wanted you to have one more normal day before everything changed. He stood suddenly and walked to his backpack by the front door. My grandson had carried this burden alone for 36 hours, protecting me from heartbreak while I worried about shielding him from the same truth. But don't worry, Grandpa. Noah returned with a manila folder and several sheets of paper. I've already handled it. Handled what? Exactly. He spread the papers on the coffee table with methodical precision, like presenting evidence. The first sheet was a grainy black and white photo from a school printer, a mugshot of Ethan with "Wanted" in bold across the top. Ethan robbed Wilson's corner store last Monday, April 3rd. Noah pointed to the date on the poster. I found this on the Chicago Police Department website. He's wanted for armed robbery, and there's a reward. I stared at the familiar face on the paper, the same man who'd sat at my kitchen table, asking about my pension and security system. The same man my daughter chose over her family's safety. Where did you get this? Printed it during lunch at school yesterday. Mrs. Henderson lets us use the computer lab for research projects. Noah flipped to the next page, handwritten notes in his careful teenage script. After I heard their plan Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. So I researched everything I could find about Ethan Carter. The notes were thorough, organized, dates of previous arrests, details from news articles about the Wilsons' robbery, cross-references between criminal cases. My 14-year-old grandson had conducted a better background check than I ever had, all while maintaining the facade of a normal teenager. I know exactly where they went. Noah pointed to an address at the bottom of his notes. 4721 Grove Street, Chicago, near DePaul University. I heard Mom mention it when they thought I was asleep. How do you remember the address so precisely? I wrote it down as soon as I heard it, then checked it on Google Street View to confirm it's real. He pulled a printed map from the folder. The address circled in red ink. It's a rundown apartment complex about 3 miles from the university. The level of detail was staggering. Maps, criminal records, timeline analysis, even photos of the apartment building he'd found online. Noah had approached this crisis with a detective's thoroughness, all while acting like an ordinary teen. Son, this is incredible work. But why didn't you tell me yesterday we could have stopped them before they took the money? Noah's expression grew more serious. Because I knew you'd try to talk Mom out of leaving. You always try to fix things with her, even when she doesn't want them fixed. And if she'd stayed, she'd have found another way to take advantage of you later. The truth of his words stung more than I wanted to admit. He was right. If I'd known their plan, I'd have confronted Sarah, tried to reason with her, probably offered some money to keep the family together. But I did something better than stopping them. Noah's voice carried a note of pride, making him sound older than his years. I called the police tip hotline this morning before school. I told them exactly where to find a wanted fugitive, gave them the address, described their car, everything. He handed me the final paper, a confirmation number in his handwriting with the call time, 9:15 a.m. Monday, April 10th. Anonymous tip regarding Ethan Carter, wanted for armed robbery. I leaned back against the couch, overwhelmed by what my grandson had accomplished, while I'd been stumbling through shock and betrayal. He'd executed a plan that could bring justice and recovery to our family. Noah, you're braver and smarter than anyone your age should have to be. I learned from watching you. Grandpa. His voice held no boasting, just simple truth. You taught me that when someone threatens your family, you protect them. That's all I was doing. But he'd protected me better than I'd ever protected him. While I'd enabled his mother's selfish choices for years, my 14-year-old grandson had seen the situation clearly and acted decisively. Why didn't you tell me earlier today? When I came home from the bank so upset, Noah's expression softened. I could see you were hurting enough already, and I wasn't sure the police would act quickly. I didn't want to raise your hopes if nothing came of the tip. He'd been shielding me from disappointment, even as he worked to resolve the crisis I couldn't handle. The role reversal was complete. My grandson had become the protector, and I was the one needing protection. The phone rang, sharp and unexpected in the quiet room. I glanced at it, then at Noah's expectant face. We should probably answer that. Not yet. Noah's hand touched my arm gently. Let me explain the rest first. I set the phone aside, letting it ring to voicemail. My grandson had earned the right to finish his story uninterrupted. You asked why I didn't tell you earlier. Noah organized his papers into a neat stack, buying time to choose his words. The truth is, I've been watching Mom take advantage of you for years, and I was tired of seeing you get hurt. He leaned back against the couch, suddenly looking young despite his mature actions. Remember last Christmas when she promised to help with groceries, but spent her entire paycheck on that designer purse? You just smiled and said it was fine. We'd make do. I remembered. Sarah had been thrilled about the purse, justifying it as professional for job interviews that never materialized. Or when she borrowed $500 for my school clothes, but then wore new boots costing 3 times that. Noah's voice carried the patient tone of someone who'd been observing for a long time. You never asked for the money back. Never made her explain her priorities. The pattern he described was painfully accurate. Every time Sarah asked for help, I gave it without question, without accountability, without expecting her to contribute to the household that supported her. I love Mom, Grandpa, but I love you more. The simple declaration hit harder than his research or planning. You're the one who makes sure I eat breakfast every day. You help with homework. Come to my math tournaments. Remember my test days. He was right. While Sarah lived here, I'd been the one providing daily care, emotional support, practical guidance. His mother had been more like an extra dependent than a partner in raising him. When I heard them planning to steal your money, I realized this was my chance to protect you for once, instead of always being the one protected. Noah's voice grew stronger, more confident. You've spent 14 years taking care of me. It was time I took care of you. The role reversal felt disorienting, but his competence was undeniable. While I'd been paralyzed by shock, he'd researched solutions and acted. I couldn't let them hurt you anymore. Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. You're all I have that really matters. I reached over and pulled him into a fierce hug. This boy, more adult than his adult mother. His arms wrapped around me with surprising strength. For a moment, we were just grandfather and grandson, holding on in the wreckage of our broken family. We're going to be fine, you know, I said against the top of his head. Just you and me. We make a pretty good team, better than we ever were with Mom around. His voice was muffled against my shoulder, but I heard the relief. I was always worried she'd do something like this eventually. At least now we know where we stand. When we separated, both of us had tears in our eyes, but they felt more like relief than sorrow. The crisis had stripped away illusions but revealed the strength of what remained. So what happens next? Noah asked, settling back beside me on the couch. If the police arrest them, do we get the money back? I don't know the legal process, I admitted, but even if we don't recover a penny, we'll figure it out. I've got my pension, and you've got a sharp mind. Between us, we can handle whatever comes. Noah nodded, but I saw practical concern in his eyes. 14-year-olds shouldn't worry about household finances. But this one had earned honest conversations about our situation. Will we have enough money, he asked quietly. For groceries, utilities, everything. The question was immediate, the kind that keeps teens awake when they shouldn't have to. but it showed how much he understood our new reality. I started to answer, then paused as a memory surfaced, something I'd forgotten in the crisis and revelations of the past hours. You know what? Noah, I stood, energy returning to my tired body. I just remembered something upstairs. His curious eyes followed me. What kind of something? Grandpa, I smiled for the first time since discovering the empty account. The kind your mother never knew existed. Wait here a minute. I headed for the stairs. I need to check something in my bedroom. Should I come with you? He started to rise. Actually, yes, you should see this. Climbing the stairs felt lighter now, despite the emotional weight of the day. Noah followed close, his curiosity evident in his quick steps matching my sudden urgency. My bedroom sat in the back corner of the second floor, modestly furnished with practical pieces that had served me for 25 years. A double bed with a worn oak frame, a dresser topped with family photos and daily essentials, a nightstand holding my reading glasses, and a small digital clock waking me at 6 a.m. every day. What are we looking for? Noah asked as I knelt beside the bed. An insurance policy. I reached under the frame, feeling for the metal storage box I'd placed there 3 years ago. Not the kind you buy from a company, the kind you create yourself. The box slid out, heavier than its size suggested, plain gray metal with a simple latch, a fireproof container from an office supply store, bought specifically to protect important documents. I'd hoped never to need its contents. I carried it to the bed and set it on the faded blue comforter. Noah watched with growing anticipation as I reached behind the framed photo of his grandmother on my nightstand and retrieved a small key. Your mother walked past this room every day for 5 years, I explained, inserting the key into the lock. She never once asked what was in here or why I kept it locked. The lid opened to reveal neat stacks of bills, mostly 30s and 60s, with a few 200s mixed in. Money sorted by denomination, secured with rubber bands, the result of 3 years of careful, small-scale saving. Noah's eyes widened. How much is in there? Let's count and see. I lifted the first stack and began separating bills. $30, 60, 90, 120, 150. The familiar ritual of counting felt different now, representing security rather than loss. Stack by stack, we organized the cash on the bed, some bills crisp and new, others worn from circulation, all from small monthly deposits from my pension, hidden from Sarah's knowledge. 2,130s, I announced, moving to the next stack, 1,860s, and 2,200 and 200s. I counted the final stack twice to be sure. Total $5,300. Noah stared at the money spread across the bed, as if he couldn't believe it was real. You've been hiding this the whole time, not hiding. Protecting. I began reorganizing the bills into their stacks. My grandfather lived through the Great Depression. He taught me never to keep all your eggs in one basket. Always have something set aside that nobody else knows about. That old wisdom, outdated in a world of banks and direct deposits, had proven invaluable. While Sarah cleared every account she knew about, she'd never found the emergency fund that would keep us afloat. Why didn't Mom know about it? Because somewhere in my gut, I knew this day might come. The admission was painful but necessary. I love your mother, but I've watched her make selfish choices for years. Some part of me knew her access to my resources needed limits. Noah helped return the money to the box, his movements careful and respectful. So we're actually okay. Really okay. For several months at least. I locked the box and returned the key to its hiding place, long enough to figure out our next steps, make decisions about the future, maybe recover some of what was stolen if the police succeed. The relief on Noah's face was worth more than all the money in the box. For the first time since morning, he looked like a 14-year-old again, not a teen forced to carry adult burdens. "Can we go back downstairs now?" he asked. "I want to finish setting up the chess game we never got to play." Chess. The normal evening activity we'd maintained for 5 years. The stable routine of connection. The idea felt perfect after a day of crisis and revelation. Absolutely. I lifted the storage box. "Let me put this back where it belongs, and we'll see if your endgame strategy has improved since last week." Walking down the stairs together, box in hand, felt like descending from crisis into recovery. The house still held the same furniture, the same photos, the same memories of a family that included Sarah. But now it felt like a home for 2, not 3. And somehow, that felt more honest than what we'd had before. In the living room, Noah was already pulling the wooden chess set from its cabinet, arranging pieces on the coffee table with practiced efficiency. The familiar ritual of setting up pawns and positioning major pieces provided the normalcy we both needed. I placed the storage box on the mantel next to the family photos, a tangible reminder that security and planning could coexist with love and generosity. I settled into my usual chair across from Noah's spot on the couch. "Your move, Grandpa." But before I could touch a piece, the phone rang again, its sharp tone cutting through our moment of peace. The chess pieces sat abandoned as I stared at the ringing phone. 9:30 in the evening was late for calls in our quiet Chicago neighborhood. The old rotary phone's mechanical ring felt louder, more insistent, slicing through the silence we'd finally achieved. Noah looked up from the chessboard, his eyes meeting mine with shared understanding. We both knew who was calling. I rose slowly and walked to the side table where the phone demanded attention. The receiver felt heavy as I lifted it to my ear, bracing for the storm I knew was coming. "Hello? Dad, how could you betray me like this?" Sarah's voice exploded through the earpiece, so loud Noah could hear every word from across the room. "Ethan's been arrested. The police took everything. How could you do this to me?" I held the phone slightly away, gesturing for Noah to stay quiet and still. My grandson needed to hear this conversation, to understand the consequences of his brave action. But he also needed protection from his mother's rage. "Where are you? Sarah, are you safe? Safe? I'm broken alone because of you." Her voice cracked with fury and desperation. The police knew exactly where to find us. They had our address, knew about the money, everything. "You called them, didn't you? Don't lie to me." The moment had arrived. I could reveal Noah's involvement, shift the blame to a 14-year-old who acted out of love, or shield my grandson from his mother's wrath by taking responsibility. Yes. The word came out steady and clear. I called them. Silence stretched across the line for several seconds. Then Sarah's voice returned, lower but more dangerous. "I can't believe you'd turn your own daughter into the police. You stole my life savings and ran away with a criminal." I kept my voice calm, factual. "That money was all I had. Sarah, you took everything I worked 42 years to save. It was just sitting there in those accounts. You weren't using it. It was my retirement fund, my security, my backup for medical emergencies and unexpected expenses." Each word felt like a nail in the coffin of our relationship. "You had no right to take it. I'm your daughter. I deserved better than living in this tiny town, working dead-end jobs, never getting anywhere." The self-pity in her voice was familiar and infuriating. Ethan could have given me a real life. We could have started over somewhere new, with stolen money and a man wanted for armed robbery. He was trying to change. People can change. Dad, I looked at Noah, listening with focused attention, learning hard lessons about family loyalty and responsibility. My grandson had risked everything to protect me from this woman's selfishness. And now she demanded sympathy for her choices' consequences. The money is gone, Sarah, confiscated as evidence. Ethan is in jail, and you're exactly where your choices have led you. This is all your fault. Her voice rose to a shriek. I'm homeless and penniless because you couldn't let me be happy. I couldn't let you destroy our family. The words came from deep in my chest, from months of buried pain. You abandoned your son, stole from your father, and ran away with a criminal. Those were your choices, not mine. Through the phone, I heard traffic noise. Sarah was calling from a payphone or someone's cell, somewhere public, likely with nowhere to go and no money for necessities. You've ruined everything, she screamed. This was my chance at real happiness, and you destroyed it. I held the phone away as her voice reached painful volume. Noah moved closer, standing behind my chair, offering silent support. His presence gave me strength to say what needed saying. I protected my family from you. The line fell silent except for Sarah's ragged breathing. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and calm. This isn't over. What do you mean? This isn't over, I asked, unsure if I wanted the answer. I mean, you haven't heard the last of me. Her voice shifted from rage to something calculated. I'm stranded here because of what you did. I need money to get back on my feet. The money you stole is gone, taken by the police. I can't help with that. You have other money, your pension, the savings account I couldn't access. Send me something, anything. I'm your daughter. The plea carried her perfected manipulative tone, the same voice that convinced me to pay her rent, her lawyer fees, her credit card bills, the voice that trained me to say yes without question, to enable without accountability. But not tonight. Not after everything. No. The word hung in the air like a slammed door. What do you mean? No disbelief crept into her voice. I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. No way to buy food or find shelter. Then you should have thought about that before you stole from your family and ran away with a criminal. I surprised myself with how steady my voice remained. Those are the consequences of your choices, Sarah. You can't just abandon me. I'm your child, and Noah is your child. I looked at my grandson, watching with pride and amazement, the child you abandoned without a second thought. The boy you were willing to drag into a life of crime and uncertainty for a fresh start, with a man who beats people unconscious in bar fights. Silence. That's different. Noah is 14. He can take care of himself. He's a child who needs stability, security, and adults who put his welfare above their selfish desires. The words came from months of suppressed frustration. Everything you've proven you can't provide. I could have provided plenty if you hadn't interfered. Ethan had plans. Ethan is a career criminal who robbed a store a week before you stole my money. His plans involved using stolen funds to finance more crime. Noah's hand touched my shoulder, giving me courage to continue. I won't enable that life for you or anyone else. Fine. I'll figure it out myself. But don't expect me to come crawling back when you change your mind. I hope you do figure it out. Sarah. I hope you build a legitimate life, make amends for what you've done, and someday earn back the trust you've destroyed. My voice caught slightly, but I won't send money to make bad choices easier. You're choosing money over your daughter. I'm choosing my grandson's welfare over your immediate wants. I'm choosing responsibility over enablement. I'm choosing to break a pattern that has hurt us all, including you. Her breathing grew labored. Sarah was crying now, but the tears sounded angry, not remorseful. If that's how you want it, fine. Don't expect to see me again. No calls, no letters, no visits. Don't expect to meet any grandchildren I might have in the future. The ultimatum was meant to wound, to make me reconsider out of fear of permanent loss. But sitting in my living room with Noah beside me, surrounded by the stable, peaceful life we'd begun building, the threat felt more like a promise than a punishment. If that's what you decide, Sarah, I'll be sad, but I'll understand. The door will always be open if you return under different circumstances, if you're ready to be accountable, to make amends, to contribute instead of take. You mean if I'm ready to crawl back on my hands and knees and beg forgiveness for trying to build a better life? I mean, if you're ready to acknowledge that stealing from your family and abandoning your son were wrong choices that hurt people who loved you. If you're ready to earn trust instead of demanding it, well, I'm not ready for that, and I never will be. Her voice was cold, final. The daughter I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, walked down the aisle, rescued from an abusive marriage, was cutting herself out of our lives rather than accept responsibility. I love you, Sarah. I always will. But I won't enable your destructive choices anymore. Save it for someone who cares. The line went dead with the harsh sound of a receiver slamming down. I stood holding the silent phone, processing the finality. 39 years of being Sarah's father ended with a dial tone. Noah's arms wrapped around me from behind. A 14-year-old offering comfort to his grandfather after losing a daughter. I set the phone back in its cradle and turned to embrace him properly. Both of us understood our family was now permanently just us two. We held each other in the quiet living room, surrounded by chess pieces and family photos, in a home that had weathered its worst storm and emerged stronger. 4 months passed like pages in a book of ordinary days. Spring turned to summer, and the April crisis faded into a distant memory that rarely intruded on our routine. Noah finished his freshman year with grades that would make any parent proud. His best semester yet, achieved without the constant stress of his mother's financial demands and emotional chaos. I discovered the joy of full-time grandfathering, cooking breakfast every morning, helping with homework every evening, attending school events without worrying about Sarah causing a scene. We found our rhythm: grocery shopping on Mondays, chess lessons on Thursdays, weekend projects around the house that Noah tackled with enthusiasm, secure in his home. The $5,300 I'd hidden proved enough for our careful lifestyle. My pension covered essentials, and Noah contributed with a summer job mowing lawns in the neighborhood. He'd grown taller in those 4 months, more confident, carrying himself like a young man who knew his place in the world and the value of his efforts. We rarely spoke of Sarah. Her absence became as natural as her presence had been disruptive. The house felt larger without her constant crises, more peaceful without the tension of wondering when the next emergency would drain our resources or emotions. On Thursday afternoon, August 10th, I was reading the Riverside Tribune in my usual chair while Noah worked on his summer reading at the kitchen table. The windows were open, letting in warm air and the sound of birds in the oak tree outside. Our domestic tranquility had become so routine, I'd almost forgotten how precious it was. A loud knock on the front door shattered the peace like a stone through glass. Noah and I looked up, startled. We rarely had unannounced visitors, and neighbors usually called first. The knocking came again, more insistent, as if the person on our porch refused to be ignored. I glanced at the clock. 4:30 in the afternoon. Too early for dinner guests. Too late for deliveries. Who could that be, I asked, more to myself than Noah. Maybe the mailman, Noah suggested, though we both knew the mail had come earlier. I rose and walked to the front window, angling to see the porch without being seen. What I saw froze me in place, my hand gripping the curtain. Sarah stood on our front step, thinner than in April, wearing clothes that had seen better days. A single duffel bag sat at her feet, everything she owned in one small package. My daughter had returned. Grandpa Noah appeared beside me, concern in his voice. What is it? I stepped back from the window, my mind racing through possibilities and complications. 4 months of peace, stability, a life that worked for us both. And now this. The knocking came again, followed by a voice I recognized but wished I didn't have to hear. Dad, I know you're in there. Please open the door. Noah's eyes widened as he recognized his mother's voice. His body shifted closer to me, an unconscious gesture of alliance and protection. We'd become a team over these months, and his instincts told him to stand with me, not rush to greet the woman who'd abandoned him. I walked slowly to the front door, my hand resting on the deadbolt I'd installed after her April call. Such a small thing, but it represented the boundary I'd finally learned to set. The choice to let people into our lives, not let them take what they wanted. My fingers hesitated at the lock. 4 months ago, I'd have opened this door immediately, welcomed her with relief and questions, probably money for whatever crisis brought her back. But that man was shaped by decades of enabling and fear of loss. The man at this door had learned something new. That love sometimes meant saying no. That protecting those who mattered most might mean disappointing those who demanded the most. That family could be defined by choice and commitment, not just biology and obligation. I turned the deadbolt and opened the door. Sarah stood before me, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked older, worn by whatever experiences filled her 4 months away. But her eyes still held the same mix of defiance and entitlement that drove her to steal my savings and abandon her son. Hello? Dad. Behind me. I felt Noah move closer, ready to support whatever decision I made about the woman who'd given birth to him, but failed to be his mother when it mattered. Hello? Sarah. She glanced past me to acknowledge her son, the boy she'd left without a thought when dreams of easy money and criminal romance called. Hi, Noah. My grandson said nothing, but I felt his presence like an anchor, reminding me of what we'd built together and what we stood to lose if I repeated past mistakes. Sarah looked at us both, waiting for an invitation that didn't come automatically this time. The door remained half closed, my body blocking easy entry. My choice remained unmade about whether our hard-won peace was worth risking for the possibility of redemption. Can I come in? If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.